Be sure to like and subscribe. So badly. Now, another lot. Oh, it's good for lots of things. I want to both. So she's going to need support. Because all they really want is
Maybe they got very on my classes, so I didn't be able to do it back down in the car. So
Oh, they're so fun.
It almost time to tea.
That's cool. It's very It's really, really sweet.
Little Buddha baby.
We got videos here. It's basically just it's so cute. It's really, it's just, Susie's favorite to go. What's that? No, not for a week. It is,
They do shrink. They look for a long time. Okay.
yeah,
Look up the smile like I can see. Go over this couple.
yeah.
Very good.
Susie with her. Oh, very much so. Very much so. She's a real glory guy.
Nice. Oh, she's
Yeah.
I don't normally do microphones, is this okay? Yeah. So, Granger and I are just so touched to be with you guys today. Thank you so, so much. You know, it does buttress me because this has been the hardest part of my life by far. So, it just makes me, you know, losing Sandy in 2023, losing Kari in March, losing my dad in June. And it just makes me think of losing Donnie in 2013. And Katie's mentioned it many times, and it's so true. We were so lucky to grow up with 2 homes and 2 families, and we just thought it was normal. That mom and, you know, my mom and her mom were always together. We always did things, and we always went on vacation together. We just thought that was normal. You know? So, what a gift. What a gift. There have been many angels along the way for us in this process. With Ruth coming in and helping our parents and accepting help. Kari fractured her hip in 2021. Yeah. And all along the way, and Violet was an aide that helped my dad at the end, and you know, he said, "She's my ride or die." I'm like, so funny. And I have to thank all of my friends who have just been tremendous, my family, all my cousins, and how you all came through for phase 1 of cleanup in October 2022, followed closely with November 2022, phase 2, and with my friends coming in and helping, and my secret weapon, Sandy's boyfriend, Jim Knapp, and kudos to Mike Schwenk, my cousin Jean's husband, who flew from Seattle, single-handedly cleaned out that basement, and everybody who knows that basement knows, and he did it all by himself. He's a champion. So it's all about people who show up, like Nancy, flying all the way from London. Really touching. And I want to just humbly thank you for hosting all those Boxing Days. She used to live in Summit, and every Christmas was spent at her house singing Christmas carols and laughing, and that gave something for Kari and Jim. They always looked forward to it. Kari was always late to it, and bringing food.
She brought dessert.
Yeah. So, and I want to also thank my family, like my husband and my kids, who've been carrying on as I've been completely consumed by what has been on my mental landscape. And I love my aunts. I love my aunts so much, who have given me very important maternal energy just when I need it the most. So thank you. And I'm finally humbled by my best friends here, my college roommate. You've come all the way, my friends from kindergarten, middle school, and high school, all here. Thank you. So what we're going to do is we're going to do Kari first. If you have any little quick stories to share, long stories to share, we appreciate them. They completely help, right? So we'll do some of those. Then we'll do the gym part. Got any gym stories? Probably. And then we'll wrap it up and have some cocktails. I've completely killed myself on the memorial booklet, so feel free to look at it at your leisure. Take one with you.
Don't sign it, right? So you can go to one.
So Kari always, she always loved to say, "I was 2 for 1," so this no gathering. So, okay. So, do you have any words you want to share right now? Do you want to start off with your eulogy, or do you want me to?
I just have some anecdotes I'd like to share. I wrote it down because I don't want to get thrown off. Starting with mom first, right?
Yeah. Do mom first, we'll have a mom first.
It's insane how fast these things happen. So I just was going to share a few anecdotes about what it's like to be Kari's son, right? And some of the fun that we had. And I can tell you that as everyone will tell you, anybody who knows Kari, she's the quintessential people person. She could make friends with anybody. And Amy and I were also commiserate about it because whether it's the DMV, a doctor's appointment, or at the supermarket, and to this day, I still have a phobia of shopping, as my wife Stephanie. My mother, we would go to that Acme as kids, and we couldn't make it from the produce aisle to the milk aisle without her stopping several times, speaking with them, and like, right? And you're like, Mom, come on. And she'd be like, in a minute, which meant 15 minutes or so. And so that continued, but that's because she got to know everybody. Even when she worked in the art craft house, when she owned that in New Providence, I remember she'd always go out late and she'd be vacuuming the place, right, at 2 o'clock in the morning, and the midnight shift cop. Joe, was his name Joe? Ed would come by and, he's doing his business checks, doors open. And he's, oh, hey, Kari. Ed, how you doing? You want some coffee? Yeah, matter of fact, I do. Right? So that's how she became endeared to practically everybody, all the time. Her kindness always came through. I know that she could be damn pissed at us, and then see someone, oh, hi, how are you? And have the ability to just switch, pause that, and be this fun, loving person here, and then come right back to being angry with us. I think where Mom really shined during our teen years, I feel like that's when Kari really, as a mom, excelled. Not to take anything away, but that's certainly where she really hit the afterburners, if you will. We kids loved her. All our friends loved her. Thank you all for being, especially Amy, when you and Katie worked at the art craft house. And all the girls were coming over doing everything. So Mom was so involved in everyone's life. And to this day, I swear she could have been a protocol officer for the State Department. When we go visit our family in New York, right? It's a big family. And so I was like, no, Mom, remind me again, how's the relationship? I'm just not wired that way. And she not only knows the gossip, she knows who's dating who, or whatever. She just knew everything. She remembered our friends' phone numbers, for God's sake, right? And one of the funniest things I remember about Mom with kids, I used to work at this place called Welch Farms. I was probably 17, 18 years old. And it's right down the street. And I'd come home, and my best friend, Gary, thank you for coming, Gary, would be hanging out with Kari. What's going on here? And we're just hanging out. And I go, oh, now it's our turn to hang out. I'm not done. I gotta go. So that was always so cool to have a parent that's like that. That's definitely Mom. Yeah. So she was great, and when I went off to the Army and Amy off to college, she remained the rock. So, same with Sandy, right? And so all of our Christmases, when Mom became a little bit of a collector, let's put it this way, the house has, as you know, and so our Christmases, they became going into more to Sandy and Donnie's house. They had the room, and we would all crash there. But that was great to have that ability to be able to do that. And Mom would always make something to bring over there, so that was always fun. I'll never forget that. And remember Otto and Sanford, and to this day, you got to visit them. Those are some very close friends of my parents all the time they were married. And they would come every Christmas, and Sanford would put on the Santa hat and pass out the gifts. And to this day, we kind of take a version of that in my family. And they hand out the presents, and he would look at it and go, to Amy, right? Donor unknown, right? And pass it out. And it's like, oh, the labels, yeah, that's right. It's so fun. It was such a good time. All the good times. My mother has also had a way, speaking of getting to know everybody, I'll never forget, in the Army, circa 1990, 1989, that, probably 90. I remember walking into my barracks area in Fort Benning, Georgia. Back then, they don't have cell phones, right? So you have this big whiteboard, and it says, Specialist Prunier, go see Lieutenant Carabas, who was my executive officer, right? The captain's second. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in big trouble. What did I do? And I go to the office and say, sir, Specialist, come on in, have a seat. I just spoke to your mother. What a wonderful person. You know, your grandfather was a colonel, and like, yes, sir. You know, he's like, well, I went to VMI, and he's giving me the story, and now my mom's in. I don't know how you do this. How do you randomly call an army base, get through to the chain of command of your son? I don't know how that happened. To this day, I don't know how she did it, but now she's keeping tabs on me. I'm keeping my eyes on you. You know, we'll never get away from it. Yeah, there was a time, Kari was great too, when I had, you know, like all people, I had a little issue with a girlfriend afterwards and had to move back home. I brought my big dog, and my mother took it like a champ. His name was Jess. He's like a 120-pound black lab or something, and my mother hated the hair all over the place, so she had a vacuum attachment with a brush, and that poor dog endured it because he hated every second of it, you know. Getting the hair all over the place. It was so much fun. When we did move, let me tell you, Gary, I didn't even think of this when I saw you. Remember the time, my mother was also the grammar police, if you will. I remember when I'd excitedly try to recount the story, Ma, she hated Ma, which meant I'm going to always use it. She goes, I hate Ma, it's Kari or Mother Dearest. So I was like, no, it's Ma. It's going to be Ma. And so I said, Mama, you'll never believe what happened. The cops, me and Gary, we're getting chased by the cops. And she goes, Gary and I. And so like, never mind it. Did you hear the chased by the cops part? And she's like, start again. Gary and I. You're murdering the King's English. Oh my God. Does that not sum her up though? That's exactly how she was. It was definitely tough having to move them down to Florida. That was always difficult because we knew, and thank God, Amy's the Tower of Iron Will, and all of you who helped to get this done. We had to sell the home so they can get them the care they needed, and I'm glad they were able to come down to Florida. You know, Mom used to think we're all a bunch of hillbillies down there in Florida. It's totally not the case. She got to see for herself at least, so that was nice. She always had her wine down Wednesdays over there. They had her glasses of wine, right? We were taken to the doctor's appointments. Stephanie, I couldn't have done it without her. My wife took my mom to every doctor's appointment, and it was like every week. And oh my God, it's this week, it's next week. You know, it's constantly changing, and it was always frantic and hectic. And then Kari wasn't ready when it was time to go, which is typical of Kari. Mom, I remember when we're at the doctor's appointment 15 minutes. I'm not ready. Oh my God, right? And we bickered at one another, playfully, of course. And I really missed that because, you know, I didn't expect, you know, that would be cut short the way it did. But we say we learn our parenting skills from our parents, which, you know, we figured out as we go, just like they did, right? And I think I took a lot of anything good comes from my mom, you know. Her Kariisms, as we love to call them. Amy, how many did we have? 140 Kariisms. We still, to this day, the kids will say something in her voice, you know, try to, you know, pull the spirit of Kari and say something that thinks, I kick him right in the slats, right? Or something like that. And he just comes out. That's how she spoke, and it's just, she was so much fun. I guess that's the best way I could say it. I'll miss teasing my wife in front of my mother because she would always say, oh, Ranger, you never had it so good. You leave my Stephanie alone, right? And she was so protective, but she was great. She always, I'll always treasure that time we had. I'm glad that we were able to spend the last couple of years together. I was hoping it would have been more. There were some times where it was getting better and then getting down and then better again and I told Stephanie we had this thing. I don't know if I borrowed it from someone else. We call it doomsday fatigue. We've been there before, where the doctor's like, "Hey, this is serious." Sure it is. You said that the last 3 times. You know, how do I know? But in the end, it was great that we were all together and we got to share that time.
Yeah.
So for that, I thank you all for coming. Some of the stories, it's very uplifting, and it definitely takes some of the pressure of the grief off. So thank you very much.
Do Do I look like anybody you know? So I am the youngest. Well, my voice carries very well. I can't even tell a secret. All right. So I'm Pamela. I'm the youngest of 3 girls, and I'm 5 and 6 years younger than Kari and Sandy. So I'm kind of the last Barnett girl at this time. I'm glad to be here and certainly to support my family. I want to tell you a few stories about the sisters. We are all very social and affable. We talk to anybody, and the reason why is because we were Army brats. And so when we had to leave our friends behind, we had to make new friends. And my husband says, I make friends with absolutely everybody. Well, I said, yeah, they're out there and they want to talk. And so it's very easy for us to start a conversation with anybody. And being from Nebraska now, it drives my husband nuts. So that's okay. And so with Kari and Sandy, being the youngest, I loved being with my older sisters. So it's in the book. I would always race from elementary school to the middle school in Summit, New Jersey. And the next thing I'd hear is, oh God, here comes Tammy, because my sisters didn't want me hanging around. And then I think a lot of you probably don't know this, but Kari, when we lived in Rhode Island, she played softball with the boys because she could really slam the ball with the bat. She was very strong, and she was always the first girl picked to be on the team. And that was kind of a fun reputation. So one thing that wasn't highlighted is that Kari was a wonderful cook. We all loved her food, and she loved cooking, right? Remember that? And sharing the food. She, excellent cook, and definitely knew how to use her herbs and seasonings to really enhance food. Seafood was her specialty. And the shrimp was to die for, and she could do fillet of fish. Wonderful, right? And I remember enjoying her food greatly. She, I didn't mention this. So growing up, my sisters had certain strengths, and I mean that literally. Kari, to get her way, would punch us. And I mean knock the breath right out of us. And of course, my dad was a boxer, so Kari picked up a couple lessons there. So Sandy and I would get the beaten out of us, but it was with a punch. Sandy, on the other hand, she could pinch. She pinched so well that she could draw blood. Now, by the time I was old enough to rule the roost, they were both one. So you know who I ruled? The family dog. And that wasn't real successful for me. But, so I always picked on Kari and Sandy how they ruled the roost, and I didn't get away with anything. And both were very instrumental in my life. Sandy directed me into my professional career of occupational therapy. Kari taught me manners, and yes, don't murder the king's English. Be sure I speak in excellent grammar. And I try, and I write the same way too. But they will be sorely missed, that's for sure. A lot of Kariisms, and every time somebody uses one of them, I think of Kari right off the bat. And like horse balls. Oh, that's what it's called. Okay. Don't take anything seriously. But I will definitely miss them. I'm being the last one of the sisters. Oh, this is another thing. So we went to a restaurant when our dad was at Walter Reed Army Hospital. And the 3 of us are eating at this restaurant. And the waiter comes over and says, are you guys triplets? And I'm thinking, what? I'm 5 and 6 years younger. No way. Where did that youth go? But we always, if we were always a threesome, we always thought, I think in terms of 3, not just 1. Don't you think? And they certainly led me along. When we lived in Germany, my sisters took the summer to camp throughout Europe, mainly France, Germany, and they did go to Italy. They wanted to take me, and I was 12 years old. What do you think my mother said? No, you're not taking your little sister. She's staying here. So they had a grand time. They were very fortunate with the experiences that they had, and I was very fortunate, 1, with the experience of traveling, and 2, for sure, having wonderful sisters. They were a big influence on my life. So
I thank you very much for being here and thinking fondly of my sister and brother-in-law. And if you have any questions, feel free to come and ask me later.
I want to make a mention. My cousin Gerald was supposed to be here today, and very tragically, his wife Laura's mom died
So sad.
this morning, right? He and Kari were very, very close, and my heart breaks. So it just kind of reinforces that heaviness that I've been feeling and how it's been. Some days it feels like I'm carrying a boulder of heartache inside. On a recent morning, so my mom's a keeper. And the really nice thing about it is that she's kept all those cards my dad made fun of her and wrote, and then she kept all of the cards we ever wrote for her. And there's one Mother's Day card that I had given her. It had this beautiful quote in it, and it said, "A mother is someone who can take the place of all others, but whose place no one else can take." So it's going to be impossible for me to put in one tribute and convey all that love that I have for her. But one of the things that was so terrific was her Kariisms and how she was just so flippant, and how if conversation was an art form, that woman would have been Van Gogh. And she brought humor to her life using those like little quips, and and she said that because it was her, she was so outgoing because she was an Army brat, but I kind of feel that she already had that in her, and that was just for practicing ground. But she had such a way, and she could strike up a conversation with anybody, and it's a real gift. And Daryl, Katie, and Granger, and I do it too. So she was a keeper, and she was a keeper. I loved how she kept that same Carol Burnett Pixie since she was 19. She kept the same lipstick color, L'Oreal number 590, blushing Mary. She kept the dresses she created, got those. She kept paper of all kinds. I remember that she even has a receipt, I kid you not, and I kept it, from Walgreens for a carton of cigarettes and Nicoderm CQ. That's the only thing. The one was unopened.
Yes, which one?
Yeah, guess which one. She even kept the hospital bill from Granger's birth in 1970. I got that too. Side note, circumcisions cost $10 then.
Get the secrets out.
And although she kept things, she was really generous in spirit. She gave that away. She really did. She had a very thick-skinned sense of humor. That was definitely one of her hallmarks because she was such a great sport, and you got that gift too. We made so much fun of this woman. You'll get yours. She wouldn't get her nose bent out of joint, ever. She would just playfully shrug off the jokes from her friends and her family, and she would just say, what do you know? She was really fun. She was very, very fun. And I don't think I ever saw her embarrassed. Ever. And I think about that, like that self-assuredness, that free-spiritedness. She did what she wanted, when she wanted. There was no one like her, and she was our mom. She was most definitely a keeper, and I will keep her with me always, hearing her voice in my head, grateful for the fun memories and the love. And I will welcome everyone inside just like she would do with her open doors. Come on in. And I will absolutely, absolutely, honorably do that too.
I can't really like match up that. It sounds really good, but I can try. So Kari was my gram, which is what my cousins and me would call her. Like even second cousins, everyone would just call her Gram. And Gram was my mom and Uncle Granger's grandmother's name and like nickname, and it just kind of caught on to Graham. So we had a really fun relationship. Whenever I would catch her sleeping, like a deep sleep on the couch, I would sneakily change the channel, and she would somehow just wake up, like just wake up, and she would be like, I was watching that. She was not. I loved her house, even though I couldn't change the channel, mostly because of the food she made, or the food that I found in the house. Me and my cousin Becca would search all over the place for any chocolates or Girl Scout cookies or candy, and we would always find it, just like it was a game. We would usually find the Girl Scout cookies and chocolates in the sunroom, which was lots of fun, so one of my favorite memories. And she would yell at us. She was my only grandmother I've ever had, and a really great friend, and I loved her so much.
I always remember going over to Graham's house, and I always remember there was so much stuff everywhere. I would see the same items, like every time he'd come back, a few months he'd go back, I'd find the same exact stuff at the house. Yeah, it was always fun going over there. A lot of memories. They ate really good food. Remember in the morning waking up and getting French toast. She make very good French toast. So yeah, and I remember she used to like call me up sometimes, just talk about stuff, and I would hear a lot of Kariisms on there. So there's that, and
You have a favorite Kari?
I don't know, there's just too many. It's one important, so. She's a great person. I always remember house smelled like smoke. She'd always see her out on the front porch, smoking cigarettes anytime or they had it. So she's a very unique person, and she will be.
So if anybody has Kari stories, you can, or you want to save them for later, fine too.
I'm John, I'm the son-in-law. Thank you all for coming. Yeah, it's been a tough quarter for us, but you know, I think of KARI, and she's a keeper. That's the term. Just like her daughter, my brother-in-law, my cousin-in-laws, technically, they're all keepers. I got very lucky because this family, I love more than my own. I'm just being honest. You know, one of the expressions KARI, when I first met, had to go meet the parents, that she always used to say is, and I found this out later, she would say to Amy, "Oh, don't be such a little old lady from Dubuque." Well, she married a guy from Dubuque. And things I'll remember, the television being on and being asleep. I'll remember Graham's French toast, right? Coming in, cigarette going. I always wondered what that special sauce, why she was such a good kicker. It was a blend of secondhand smoke and maple syrup. That made that French toast so good. I just figured that out this week. But definitely love KARI. I definitely got lucky as a mother-in-law. She loved to bust your balls all the time. Go back, banter. Must be a Barnett thing. It's genetic. But we love her very much, and we'll always miss KARI, but she'll never be forgotten. She's an incredible woman, and it's definitely genetic. Love you guys. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Buffy. I'm Pam's daughter. Kari and Sandy were always a two for one. And Amy said that growing up next to each other was normal, but we knew it wasn't normal. Sybil and I did, but we'd always come home, like whenever we came out to Jersey, you'd be going between the two houses. You know, you knew where you'd find Kari, you'd have a chance to say hello. And I think that what's really meaningful or really special, especially thinking more in reflection, our grandparents passed away when we were very young. And I always miss this opportunity of true conversations as you get into your 20s, 30s, even early 40s, right? And without having grandparents, I always wish that we could have had conversations as adults to talk about what it was like growing up for them, just this foundation of insight and knowledge. And so I think with both Kari and Sandy, we were just so fortunate to have their impact, their support, their love. Like they were two people who both loved us as if we were their own. And it's something so unique and such a special relationship. And when you're growing up and like when you're younger in high school, you don't have nearly the type of just hardships and joy that you do as you get into adult years. So I'm so fortunate to have had these relationships, to have these true conversations just about life and learning and how you move on from there. So I think as it's hard to think of a chapter closing, but also just try to be very grateful for the relationships and the foundation they built. And part of that foundation is our family relationships and the cousins and the group that we have together and how close we are and how much fun we have together. So I definitely think that as we continue to get together, it's an honor, a form of honoring them holistically too. So we'll forever miss KARI.
Switch out the photo now. We're going to the gym portion of the event.
Exit stage.
good? Yeah. Aunt Terry, thank you so much for the photo. Now, Daddy was just as big of a character as my mom was. And Kari always said, do as I say, not as I do. Daddy, however, was a doer. He was a hard worker. If he was going to do something, he was going to do it well. And it's a trait he definitely most passed on to me. I remember him preparing my favorite doll, Tina. Coco had torn off, just when she was a puppy, she just tore off the cloth body and shredded it. And so he was like a surgeon operating at the ironing board in the basement under the fluorescent lights, detaching the head and putting it onto a new body that he got. And because I couldn't sleep without her, and I remember sitting on the basement stairs, is it done yet, Daddy? And I was trying to peer over. And he was the dad who kept my pottery creation from kindergarten, this clay bob with rusty nails sticking out, which I called the mosquito. And it found its home at every desk he worked at. And it moved with him to Florida too. It's just so sweet. He was the dad who built my own yellow custom kitchen set with the MDF and the lumber. He was the dad who built Ranger and me the famed Jungle Gym, JIM. Rope swing. You remember that? Like, yeah, it was totally fun. It was like a neighborhood fixture. He was the dad who built me a 2-bedroom dollhouse, like a Hampton style with shingles and a wraparound porch, my 10th birthday, and then shipped it to Chicago in time for Zoe's 5th birthday. I still have it. Dad also courageously ate my concoctions. He would do these, after all his grueling hours of yard work, I would make him these Arthur Bard sandwiches. I don't know where I came up with the name, but I would go through the refrigerator and take every cold cut, every slice of cheese, every condiment, and put it on a giant piece of bread. He would be like back there, like, Dad, I made you lunch! And he'd be like, oh, this is delicious! And he would eat it all. He would eat all of it and be like absolutely thrilled, you know. It probably wasn't very good in retrospect, but I was, you know, it made me happy when he was eating it and praising me. And I now realize as an adult, he was doing that for me. You know, and here I was all along thinking I was doing it for him. He was the dad who told me that there are no girl jobs or boy jobs and taught me how to mow the lawn in very symmetrical rows. He was the dad who took my 5 friends and me, 2 of you were here, in 1983 to our first concert at Meadowlands. And he silently suffered through hours of screaming and dancing and bopping to Duran Duran. And he was the dad who pushed me to do things and followed through despite my wish to avoid. He made me drive all the way down to New Jersey. Julie in the backseat can attest to that. Oh, I like loved putting the quarters in the toll booth, and I exited off the parkway when I didn't want to, and I was like, Daddy, I just want to stop, just take over, and out. And when we finally made it down the Jersey Shore, I definitely felt like triumphant and proud, like that I did it. So in that way, he taught me some perseverance. He was also the dad who revolutionized aging for me. You know, he was so disciplined with his eating that a few years with the beans was weird. He literally only ate kidney beans. Enjoy beans, like years.
Sometimes he would quarter out some iceberg lettuce.
Yeah.
Don't forget that.
Sure. He would chop up an entire onion, then mix it with the beans, and then like just eat it out of this giant Tupperware, you know. Kari would have made roulade or chicken limon, and he's just like, and maybe like, you know, chop off a head of broccoli and just have that on his plate.
Oh, yeah. Raw.
Appetizing. Raw. You don't need sauce. But I verified he exercised at the fitness factory until he was 85 years old. I am taking notes. He was opinionated, he was stubborn, he was over-analytical, he was the absolute opposite of flippant, which is what Kari was. He was a man of ethics and also of imagination. Like unhappy with the quality of the pillow that he had, he decided to make his own.
Oh, yeah.
He shoved 3 pillows into 1 pillow, stitched it up, and that is what he would, it was like this giant, dense, heavy cushion, remember? And rock hard. And he was so proud of it. And Ranger and I just saw it as weaponry.
Yeah.
Which it was, you know, we would get into a pillow fight, we would just both punch, like who's gonna get Dad's pillow
Yep.
first? Because you just take one thing and whack it. Fly. Oh my God. And he was the man who had the idea of gluing fake birds on women's hats. Straw hat, baseball cap, cowboy hat, finch, robin, cardinal, sparrow. That hot glue gun thanks to Kari, and he did just because. I'm so glad he did that after high school. But he didn't, you know, again, he was not embarrassed either. He's not a guy who was ever embarrassed. He was unapologetic. He did what he wanted to do, said what he wanted to say. You don't like it? Well, it's the truth, you know, as he saw it. He was the grandpa who liked to be called Randy. He was the grandpa, prop time. He was the grandpa to give his grandchildren rubber chickens.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. And so when other adults come to my house and they hear this, they're like, oh, God, they win. But I grin and like, oh, it's a present for my dad. He was the youngest, oldest person I knew. Dad taking notes on that too.
Well done, Eames. Well done. So for me, talking about Jim, my father, I had a great conversation just with Sartorius and Cook just a few minutes ago. You gave me some great memories about the soccer days. I appreciate that, guys. My dad was always intellectual. He was decent and honorable, but you know what else he was? He was fun. My father hit his stride as for young kids. When we were very young, he was an amazing father for that. The things that he would do, and I try to mimic that too. I don't take myself too seriously, in case you didn't notice, but I did that with my kids when they were young, and I learned that from my dad. Some of the things we would do, like even driving past Route 22, we had these weird things he would name, like remember Beautiful Jane, Roxon River, and it's just a place on the Watchung Reservation that we would go and spend time, and Amy come up with a name, and now it's forever, famous for us. He never really complained about life circumstances that I've ever remembered. I know Kari called him a curmudgeon. He would complain to her, sure. And with the aides later in the assisted living facility. But as far as he's wheelchair bound, he's had strokes, never complained. Never said life's unfair. No. So he had some stoicism for that. So he never complained. complain about anything. But I love how he pointed out, that's dopey, he would say. That's stupid. You know, he'll be fire right out there in front of you. What did he say to, even with Violet, he said, look at that guy, he's never going to get a wife. And 91 years old, whoa, Dad! Say it like it is, right? He doesn't care. He always had that childlike curiosity and charm, and I'm really grateful that my kids got to spend some time. Before he became ill and infirmed, he got, especially Amanda, remember, he would do fun things, like we had a bunch of cardboard boxes, like from refrigerators, and he'd tape it together with duct tape, and then cut doors in it, and make eye holes and things, and the little kids loved that, right? And he called it the Amander with an R, you know, he named it and stuff. And we would draw sidewalk chalk everywhere, and he was always entertaining the kids, always taking good care of us. So I'm really glad we got to see that. I know he was an assistant scoutmaster, I believe, for the scouts. We would always go and have fun things there. He was always very much about teaching us to do the right thing, especially as a young man. I always looked up to my father. When he got to soccer, holy cow, that's what we were talking before, he became the soccer guru, you know, and he just, when you get into something, he always says, life is about your passions. Without that, what do you have? And he dove head first into soccer and just became knowledgeable about everything. I still remember he would give out he would draw his own strategies and things and characters, you know, turn away to get in the play. So what that means, I'll still never forget that diagram. If someone beats you this way, you don't turn to pursue, you turn away, and you're back in the play. You come this way, and you can head them back off again. So it does stick with you. It does work. He did give sound advice, but he always let me discover things for myself. I know he enjoyed the do-it-yourself experience. He thought, you know, hey, KARI loved that, and by love it I mean hated it. he was like, oh, I'm gonna rewire the house or do some electrical work, you know. And no matter what, she's calling an electrician after the fact, and he's gonna come and undo or fix what he just did. But I give him the credit for, you know, at least trying. Same thing with plumbing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And my father proudly, to my knowledge, he's the only rust collector in the state of New Jersey. We had a rust pile in the backyard. There was a stone grill that just never worked. And he would go and collect. We would go to the train station and collect these odds and ends, metal, whatever it is, some ball, some weight. And it was like, I guess some of them was like a slab that you lift it up to put the coal in or something like that. And it's his rust collection, he would say. And sure enough, it became, anybody that came to visit, we would say, hey, want to see this? It's a rust collection. And you're like, oh, that's weird. But yet you're intrigued. Like, now, what is this piece? You pick up a spring. This is what do you wonder what this was to? And I think that's where his curiosity was from. You know, things like that. Remember the toys? He always had these bizarre kid toys, but they were fun. They were something off the wall. And we always loved it. Like, what is this? This is great. Yeah, I remember, I say Dad liked to march to the beat of a different drum. That's true. He worked at Crum and Foster in Morristown. I'll never forget. He hated the music that they were playing, right? So he divulged that he went into the ceiling tiles, found the speaker wire, snipped it, right? There, that'll learn. And he told me, they always suspected me. So they'll never prove it, you know? And you know he was probably the office hero. Oh, did you get rid of that? Yeah. Thank God. That was the worst. I could tell you that he restored some tools, some very old tools, antiques, and he restored them. And he gave them to my son Liam. And that was really nice. I want you to have these. And that was great. He always loved my mother, as I'm sure he showed you some of the pictures. He wrote Jim Loves KARI on every wall in the house. And then they wallpapered over it, right? So, but when you come down, even in the garage, there's Jim Loves KARI, right? He's put it everywhere. He loved it. And you can tell that. Even though they were also called Vickersons. But. I know during the golden years with Mom, they struggled proudly, but they carried on. I'm really glad we got to spend some time with him towards the end. If you didn't know, he had some strokes that left the left side of his body weak, and his memory was not so good. But some things he would remember. And when Aunt Terry would send us those stories, we would read them to him. And he could finish the idea, the concept. Where, remember that, Dad? Yeah. And what was that like? And he would carry right on. So that was gold. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For that. That was gold. That's one of the highlights there. I didn't expect him to go. But the way he went was great. Because I was with him and Liam was with him. No more honorable way to go. Told Liam, but it's my time. I'm going to do the same. Couldn't ask for anything better.
Yep.
Honorable man. Didn't expect that. But I'll always miss him. I'll always carry him with me. Thanks.
I just want to mention a couple things about Jim. First of all, I'm surprised nobody in the fam mentioned his love of ice cream. Yes, Bob? So when I would go and visit them, he would eat at least half a quart of ice cream at each sitting. And my God, he better have it for dessert after dinner. And Kari had to make sure that the freezer was always full of ice cream. But I don't know what his favorite flavor was.
Turkey Hill vanilla.
Turkey Hill vanilla? Oh, that's special. The other thing, now, my husband is from Nebraska. We come out to do a visit, and knowing Jim's love of soccer, they have a discussion about sports. So my husband will never forget this and reminds me. So Jim's talking about how soccer is a game of finesse, skill, ability, and constant strategy in how you play soccer. And then he turns to John and says, but I want you to know, football has no strategy. Uh-oh. And I still hear that to this day, because in Nebraska, football always has strategy. So that was really funny, and that's a couple of fond memories that I have then in our visits with Jim. So, thank you. There we go.
All right, so my name is Sybil, and I'm actually sharing this on behalf of Daryl. Jim liked to write stories, and I think that this one emerged this week, maybe a couple of days ago. So this is The Great Paintball Mystery. In the gallery of the Prunier house, there was a box of red paintballs. Paintballs are used as ammo for the popular weekend army shootouts. They could also be used as targets for pellet guns to spray their paint, if you could work out a way to squish them, which is necessary because a direct hit into a paintball simply leaves a hole for the paint to slowly ooze out. Engineering a squishing mechanism was a low priority by Jim Prunier, but it was a scheme nonetheless. Then one fateful day, Jim picked up the box and noticed it was empty. Empty indeed. The person who removed the last paintball had closed the box, thus eliminating the possibility of blaming it on an animal. Who was the culprit? Someone who stole into the Prunier house, a stranger? Someone who passed over the silverware, the household goodies, the pellet guns to get the paintballs? A stranger is a wholly illogical possibility. A remote acquaintance? No, the same illogical reasoning applies. An acquaintance, not remote, who accompanied a member of the Prunier or Forna family, who have free access to the Prunier house, and who upon chance slipped into the gallery to purloin paintballs, this surely surpasses reasonability too. The guilty party therefore must be a relative who would be enticed by the possibilities inherent in paintballs. Someone who would see a use for something that goes splat, sprays bright red washable paint stuff about, could raise a stir as a practical joke, could be seen as fun to throw against some wall. Which among the relatives does this apply? Jim is the one least likely to build from himself. Sandy, Don, paintballs? No, this is too out of character, too implausible by far. Kari, who doesn't know there is a gallery in the house. She thinks of it as a storage area. Kari, who has access to a store full of oddities. The thief of paintballs, simply absurd. The thief has to be a younger person. Katie, possibly, but would she then leave the box closed? Would her companions be delighted to have paintballs? No, there's a total lack of motive here. Amy, no opportunity is lacking. Besides putting unboxed paintballs in soft-sided luggage and hauling them off to Chicago, is a reckoning that goes beyond the pale. This leaves Daryl and Granger. Both would cover their detections by closing the box. This ploy is well documented in their past. A mature mind would have left the box open to signal the contents must have been available to all and sundry, and such freedom of access surely have accounted for its eventual diminution. This concept is not in keeping with their modus operandi. Could they have acted in concert and thus share blame? This is plausible, but then they would have had to use them together. And because Granger comes from afar, this means using them near the house. Plausible, though they have never demonstrated an ability to conceal their misdeeds near the house before. Certainly paint spots would have been detected on the nearby trees, and most certainly on the garages. Therefore, a lone robber is most likely. Which, both are accomplished at stonewalling. Daryl is the better of the two on this score. He can even become angrily aroused with righteous indignation. No doubt about it, he is the more accomplished. Granger's technique is to tolerate berating with an attitude of indifference. This has failed him when his mother feigned seeing a smile of smug satisfaction after a prolonged assail on his character. There was never an admission, to be sure, but there followed a tacit understanding between mother and son that the issue was settled. In future years, Kari would resurrect this understanding in repeated confrontations and catch Granger too willing to smile and thus establish the truth of the matter. Would someone who had reason to doubt the effectiveness of his ability to stand up against what would be years of encounter with his mother commit an act that would surely cause him more agita than could ever be justified by what fun there was in having paintballs? This seems quite unlikely. So, by weight of logical finding, by reasoning intelligently, by eliminating all other people on this planet from suspicion, it is inevitable that the scales of justice tip against Daryl. This inescapable conclusion must have been known by him beforehand and adds to the mystery. Knowing discovery was ultimately to unfold, he nevertheless pilfered the paintballs and pelted property and persons profusely until they were spent. Then, enshrouding himself in innocence and bearing the shield of ignorance, he, who for at least a time may be called the pelter, sallied forth to encounter assailants with all who would rail against him. And as he has done for all his life, turn back their jibes and accusations and make them love him again. After all, it's all about stupid paintballs, right? Yeah, that was a gem. That was a gem original. Yep.
Okay, so as you might know, Jim was called Grandy. But by only some of my cousins, which would make the nickname extra special. He was a very funny guy, very childlike and playful, but in a good way. He loved soccer, movies, ice cream. Anytime I told him about a movie that I liked, he would make a DVD of it, and just so I could watch it for free, which was really thoughtful. He was a really great grandpa, and even though he's no longer here with us on Earth, I truly believe that he is watching us in spirit, and they loved everybody in this room, so I'm so lucky that they were my grandparents and that he was my grandpa.
I always remember Grandy. I always remember he used to watch used to have friends over. He used to watch a lot of soccer, Premier League soccer in the morning. I also remember he used to like go to the gym very frequently. He got a lot of stuff done in the morning, so pretty productive, and I just have a lot of pretty good memories from him.
Well, who doesn't remember Jim? When he would see you, he would light up and say, "John, good to see you," and he'd give you a big hug. No matter where he was always enthused to see you. And I have memories going back from Chicago to New Jersey, and he would pick you up at the airport. The license plate said Prunier across the front. Couldn't miss it. But you also couldn't miss the bullhorn. Souls Party 4, pick up, TSA's coming. I remember the father-daughter dance at our wedding, which I'm going to steal that song for Zoe if she ever is fortunate enough to get there.
When she's fortunate.
Yeah, when and if, no pressure. Definitely remember the ice cream, the bird hats. I remember him being there for the birth of our kids. Granger brought up the cardboard. This guy was like an engineer of cardboard, whatever. And our kids loved those. I remember he wasn't, when you meet the parents for the first time, you don't know how this is going to go, right? Whatever. So, Big Gregory Scalios got him an autographed soccer jersey. And I show it to him. We're in the kitchen. He gives me a big hug. I'm a little bit frozen. But I see these two ladies, Kari and Amy, sitting there. Just the tears coming down. I knew I was in. And again, like marrying into the Barnett Kari side of the family, I got also very lucky to marry into the Prunier side of the family because, they made some pretty good kids, these two. And so I feel very lucky. I do feel a big loss. We love you, Jim.
I believe that concludes our memorial. So let's go out and eat and have fun and continue celebrating these two amazing characters. Thank you guys again.
There's beer and wine.
Yeah, that's your face on the eyebrows.
Can we do my stand-up? Hey, Garris, come on, do your stand-up. Give us